So first on the calendar, 48 years ago now, back in 1977, of course, it's the unique, the fast and flowing Silverstone circuit in England's East Midlands. Nearly 6 kilometres in length, 3.666 miles, 18 corners, 10 right, 8 of them left. Pretty high tyre consumption around this long and demanding layouts. Plenty of overtaking opportunities. Although it's such a vast motorsport complex, today's windy conditions will pose a pretty tough challenge for the world's best riders. Tyre stress zones through 8 and 9, the fast right-handers towards the end of the lap. As we mentioned, plenty of overtaking hot spots. This was the Bagnaia 75th anniversary celebration race when Bagnaia and Jorge Martin went toe-to-toe through Village Corner. So factory Ducati style and world champion leader Marc Marquez started yesterday's 10-lap Tissot sprint, looking to make it 7 wins out of 7 on sprint Saturdays, and it looked like he was well on course to do so when he passed pole setter Fabio Quartararo on the very first lap. Although this mistake, though, at lap 2 at turn 3 proved costly. Alex Marquez sweeping around the outside. Bagnaia dropped from the podium challenge to eventually take the checker flag in 6th place as Marco Bezzecchi came from all the way from the back. Joan Zarco and Fabio Di Gianantonio also picking off Bagnaia. But Marc Marquez's golden streak of gold medals brought to an abrupt end as he lost for the first time on sprint Saturdays. Alex Marquez taking his 2nd sprint success here at Silverstone. 19 points now is the gap between the two Marquez siblings at the top of the championship. As we start the countdown to our 7th round of this year's MotoGP World Championship. It is the 20-lap Tissot Grand Prix of the United Kingdom under somewhat cool and cloudy skies. As you can see there, ambient temperature just 16 degrees Fahrenheit. Pretty chilly because there is a real strong breeze blowing around this Silverstone circuit, built on the site of a former Royal Air Force base, who will be flying high at the end of this 20-lap battle in MotoGP. There was an indication of just how gusty the conditions are. If you are just joining us for the first time today, well, I strongly advise you, if you missed the Moto2 race that kicked off this Chapter 7 of 2025, at some point later on today, you do get the chance to watch Moto2. No spoilers here in the commentary box, but it was an absolutely belting British Grand Prix in the Intermediate World Championship category. A tough act to follow for the Premier Class field. Of course, it'll be lights out in about 40 minutes' time for our 7th round of the season. Matt Burton and Lewis Sotheby, as always, in the commentary box, talking you through the action with Jack Appleyard down in pit lane. We've had 7 sprints so far in 2025, and we've had 1-2s for the Marquez family, although a role reversal finally yesterday as Alex broke Marc's domination of the sprint format so far this season. Marc did briefly lead yesterday's 10-lapper before that crucial mistake at turn 3 saw Alex hit the front. And from that point onwards, he never really looked troubled. His first sprint success since the Sepang Grand Prix in Malaysia at the back end of 2023. And we have to say, he is the bookie's favourite, the big favourite to complete a dream double here at Silverstone. Alex, because clearly he had the superior pace yesterday. This was the key moment, Lewis. Marc making that mistake going into the Village Corner. He crashed there on Friday, and once Alex swept around the outside to lead, well, you have to say, he never gave Marc a sniff of coming back at him at all.
Impressive enough for Marc Marquez to actually be leading at that stage. Of course, came from 4th on the grid to lead at the end of the first lap, but it showed just how hard he was pushing to do that, that he went wide at Village Corner on the 2nd lap. Opened the door, as you said, for Alex Marquez, and it felt watching, and certainly was underlined by the comments of the Marquez brothers afterwards, that once Marc had fallen behind Alex Marquez and the sprint settled down, he just didn't quite have the pace to get on terms and ultimately make a move on his brother. So the 93 beaten on a Saturday afternoon for the very first time. Alex Marquez closing the World Championship advantage of his brother down to 19 points, and he will hope to make further inroads this afternoon as they start together on the grid. Second and fourth either side of Pecco Bagnaia, with Fabio Quartararo, of course, on a third consecutive pole.
Marc Marquez winless here at Silverstone since 2014. As we said in the intro, always a tough race to call, always a tough race to predict, the MotoGP action here at Silverstone. In the last 10 outings, we have had 10 different winners. Can Alex Marquez continue that trend and be our 11th different winner in 11 Grand Prix? This was late on a real scary moment involving two young Spaniards, Fermin Aldeguer charging into the back of Pedro Acosta as they weave their way through the high-speed Maggots and Beckett section. Aldeguer did incredibly well there to stay on two wheels because he was motoring at that point on that Gresini Ducati. And on the approach to Maggots and Beckett's, well, you're sort of fifth gear, not far shy of 300 kilometers an hour when they flicked it into turn 10. So yeah, a scary ending to the sprint yesterday for Pedro Acosta. Well, the birthday boy, 21 today. Many happy returns, Pedro.
Just about the only thing that Pedro Acosta has had to celebrate, really, in truth, this weekend. It's been a tough weekend for KTM. It was a tough start to the sprint yesterday for Marco Bezzecchi. You can see here, he started 11th. He was a lot lower than that by the time he came out of turn 1. 3 go past him, 4 go past him, a 5th then up the inside into the second corner. So Marco Bezzecchi was down to around about 15th or 16th place 2 corners into the sprint yesterday. Despite all of that, he rallied to finish 4th in the latter stages, including this entertaining tussle with his good friend Pecco Bagnaia. We know they like to swap a bit of trash talk. Well, it was Bezzecchi with his shorn haircut for this weekend. He's now sporting a mullet instead of the usual afro-like locks that he's been displaying in previous years. Through to 4th place, the best result of the season in any form of racing, be it sprint or Grand Prix. And Marco Bezzecchi, if he can get the start right today, might potentially be in that podium conversation.
Yeah, he's got the mullet and he was full of it last night here at Silverstone. Really pumped was Bez to take that 4th place. Frankie Morbidelli, well, a rather underwhelming sprint, you have to say, for his particular side of Pertamina Enduro VR46 Racing. They were celebrating just a 2nd sprint podium for Fabio Di Gianantonio. Frankie, though, took the checker flag in 11th place. He had problems with his whole shot device. It didn't disengage, apparently, until about turn 6. And, of course, a quick reminder, after he balked Bez on Friday's action, this is a replay, actually, of the incident we're talking about. As a result of this, well, not for the first time this season, slow riding, 2nd offence for Frankie Morbidelli, clearly bulking one of his best mates, Bez. And the outcome means, in this upcoming British Grand Prix, Frankie Morbidelli will start from 13th place with the 3-place grid penalty. 200th Grand Prix start, though, for Frankie, so he's already carrying a little bit more weight, having tucked into what was a rather nice-looking chocolate cake to celebrate this morning.
Well, Pecco Bagnaia certainly hasn't had an awful lot to smile about so far this weekend. We saw even as recently as this morning's warm-up session in the cold, damp and windy conditions, Bagnaia visibly frustrated with his Ducati, which hasn't really been behaving in the way he would like it so far this season. They've been turning that bike upside down and back to front in hope of trying to find that elusive front feeling that he needs to demonstrate what a class rider he is. Of course, we saw a graphic demonstration of it yesterday, how he's having to try and use the rear of the bike to turn the bike a lot more because he's not getting that confidence and support from the front. His rear tyre, though, yesterday in the sprint was gone after 4 laps, which saw him plummet back down the order to 6th.
Yeah, he's having a bit of a tough time. Certainly the toughest time in MotoGP probably since his injury hit rookie season back in 2019. There's still plenty of support here, though, for the 28-year-old Italian. So, 1/2 of the job already completed for Alex Marquez. A sprint winner for just the 3rd time. Twice he has done it here in front of the British fans. There have been 20 sprint and Grand Prix doubles in history. Alex Marquez has yet to complete one. We had a double win here last year from then Ducati star Enea Bastianini. But there's no question about it. Bagnaia and Marc Marquez called it on Thursday. They always felt the sort of fast-flowing nature of Silverstone, particularly with some fast right-handers, where Alex has really come to his own on that GP24 this season. The pair of them felt that Alex would be the weekend favourite, and he has not disappointed so far. He has lived up to top billing.
Can he do what he's done in no Grand Prix so far, though, in his Premier Class career, and that is do the double? He's, of course, taken sprint wins here at Silverstone before, and, of course, a Grand Prix winner at Jerez, but he's never won both in one weekend. Well, it's a last shot at history today for Fermin Aldeguer. It feels a tall order, but it is potentially possible because he has, of course, finished on the podium twice in our most recent Grand Prix weekend at Le Mans. But if Fermin Aldeguer wants to put his name in the history books as the youngest ever MotoGP winner, today is his final shot.
Not a long shot also, you have to feel, after his brilliant double podium last time out in Le Mans. Probably is potentially too big of an ask for Aldeguer here today. But it's MotoGP. Never say never. Who expected Johan Zarco to win his home Grand Prix in Le Mans a couple of weeks ago? So what a sprint he was yesterday for Marco Bezzecchi, coming from near the back of the field into an excellent fourth place, starting to enjoy himself, isn't he, Bez, on the factory at Aprilia. Let's get the thoughts of the boss, Massimo Riva, who joins Jack.
Yeah, he does indeed. Massimo, timing is everything in sports. When there's question marks about the competitiveness of the motorcycle, Marco certainly proved yesterday that you guys, when everything clicks, can be right there fighting at the front. It felt like an opportune result and performance from Marco.
Yeah, the performance was there, but again, not the result. I mean, good result, but with that speed, you should, let's say, think to win races, starting qualifying better, having a better start. So still we are not putting everything together, but it's good to see the confidence of Marco and the speed of the bike. So that's important.
It's been a difficult period for Marco. What do you think a result like that yesterday? Of course, not on the podium, but for him to feel like he was up there fighting at the front with the very best, what do you think that could do for him?
I think he needs to get a good result for himself and not just for us, to get confidence, and also to keep believing that what we see in the numbers, that the speed would be to stay on the front row is also something that he can achieve in another occasion, and not just when he's behind in the race and he can do his pace. He has a lot of pressure without us giving him pressure, but he's a fighter and he wants to prove that he can do it. But I think the time will be on his side and on our side, because with this kind of performance, for sure he will come there.
Of course, frustration for I in the Trackhouse team yesterday, well, on Friday, and then with the prognosis yesterday. He'll have some checks on Monday, but when I spoke to Davide, he made a pretty good point in that obviously there's no reserve rider because Lorenzo is going to be busy for the next couple of rounds as well. So in case you need to, have you got any early ideas? Might you have to go to World Superbikes?
I think together with Davide we will think from tomorrow about that, but it's unbelievable how this season is turning. We will find a solution, hopefully, but today I have no idea, to be honest. No.
You might have to bring your helmet to Aragon.
Okay, maybe. No, really, I don't know. It's nice to watch Moto2 riders with so many talented riders, but I think that is not the case. We will see. Honestly, I don't know. Obviously, we wish for the best for I. He's getting the confidence with the bike, and having these injuries is not ideal, but it's like that.
Thanks, Massimo. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks as always, Jack. Thanks to Massimo Riva. Yeah, potentially bring your leathers and your helmet, the gloves and the boots, Massimo, to Aragon. Many happy returns to Pedro Acosta, the factory KTM superstar, of course. 21 today. Just a little bit of an update, of course. Ayagura on his way back to Barcelona. There's been still no official confirmation, no official diagnosis after Agura's big FP1 crash on Friday at Farm Curve, where he lost the rear. But there's a possible fracture at the top of his right tibia. So there obviously has to be some doubts about his participation in the next Grand Prix in Aragon. He has not been completely ruled out. We'll await further confirmation of exactly Agura's fitness when he has undergone medical checks back in Barcelona. But sadly, sadly, not racing here this weekend. We wish him a speedy recovery. But yeah, as we heard there, Aprilia somewhat short on options.
Yeah, as Massimo Rivola said, he'll of course have a glance at what's going on in Moto2, but very difficult to pluck a rider out of that World Championship when they've got their own business to fight for. So we'll watch that space over the coming weeks. Hopefully a replacement for Iagora isn't needed in Aragon in a couple of weeks, but we await the further news on his condition. Joan Mir there in the Honda HRC Castrol box. Tricky Saturday for him. Wasn't particularly pleased with his qualifying and sprint. Bumped out of qualifying 1 by his teammate Luca Marini, and suffered throughout the sprint with chatter, which left him in 12th place. Honda have demonstrated once again this weekend their progress. Of course, a victory for them in the wet conditions at Le Mans, but in the dry once again, showing their potential. Johann Zarco, of course, the best example of that, as he came through to 5th yesterday. Yeah, only his 3rd sprint top 6 for Honda. Johann Zarco started on pole here, of course, 3 years ago in 2022, and he crashed out of the lead when then on board the Pramac Ducati. There is Fabio Di Gianantonio, just coming out to assess the current conditions. We're still, what, half an hour away or so away from lights out for this 20-lap British Grand Prix. Good to see Di Gianantonio with a smile back on his face this weekend, because he'd found the going pretty tough over in Jerez and in Le Mans. I think there's been a lot of sort of behind-the-scenes meetings. There's been a lot of Zoom calls and phone calls between Digia and his Ducati crew, just to try and work out where they go next with that GP25, or whatever they've been discussing and whatever they've been working on down in the VR46 Racing Garage. It has paid off because Digia had superb pace, particularly in the second half of yesterday's sprint. That carried him through to 3rd place, just a second and a half behind Marc Marquez. And just a second sprint podium of the career of Fabio Di Gianantonio in MotoGP. And the previous sprint podium that he took, he went on to win the Grand Prix the very next day, Qatar 2023. Can he do the same today? Well, Enea Bastianini, of course, got himself in a few scrapes in Le Mans. He served 4 long lap penalties in total during that French Grand Prix. Well, he'll serve just the 1 at the moment today. That was for this incident into the Dunlop chicane, of course. We had a lot of riders on dry tyres. We had a few riders on wet tyres. Bastianini up the inside. Contact with Pecco Bagnaia, which also sent the Ducati into Joan Mir. Very nearly knocked off the eventual winner, Johann Zarco, into all of that as well. And here Bastianini, as a result of that incident, causing a crash at the French Grand Prix. Long lap penalty, which he will have to serve in the early stages today. You just can't believe, can you, how close Zarco was to being cleaned out of his home race in Le Mans. Talk about capitalising on your good fortune, because we know what happened in the following 26 laps where the roof was raised off the grandstands at the Bugatti circuit. I'm sure there's people probably still celebrating that momentous day for French motorsport. 1954 was the last time the French fans had been able to toast a homegrown winner in the Premier class. Can Zarco, probably long odds to be just the 2nd rider in Premier class history to win back-to-back races from France. Of course, Fabio Quartararo has that accolade, as Marc Marquez then gets set to try and fight for his 1st British Grand Prix success since 2014. He did say yesterday, 2nd saved my Saturday. He feels that this weekend has been his hardest in red so far, and really not got any clear explanation as to why. He always felt that he knew Alex with the fast right-handers here, particularly through 7, 8 and 9. That's where he feels that Alex really does have the upper hand. So I suppose if damage limitation is 2nd, well, you're not doing too bad, are you? Yeah, and if your worst qualifying of this season is a 4th place just off the front row, it shows you how strong Marc Marquez has been on Saturday morning so far this season. But he is out-qualified by Pecco Bagnaia for the first time in their stint together in Ducati Red. But we did see Marc Marquez very quickly getting the better of his teammate into the first corner yesterday. So here comes Fabio Quartararo for the 3rd Grand Prix weekend in a row. He climbs aboard his factory Yamaha and gets set to ride it to the very front of the grid and pole position. Of course, converted that into a podium finish in Jerez. Who knows where he would have ended up when all the chaos eventually settled down at Le Mans. Of course, he crashed out of 2nd place at that time. He feels, based on what we saw yesterday, that it's potentially a tall order for him to fight for the podium today. The low grip conditions of the sprint yesterday certainly did not play to Yamaha's advantage. Can they enjoy some slightly better fortunes today as Quartararo goes from a 3rd consecutive pole?
Yeah, those low grip conditions, we saw chatter rear its ugly head for Yamaha. It's been a pretty rare occurrence. Of course, chatter has crippled the KTMs over the last 18 months or so. There is, well, this is the real-life version of Fabio Quartararo on the sighting lap here at Silverstone. Some fans with a cardboard cutout of their hero in the hotel that flanks the start-finish straight here at Silverstone. This will be an incredibly slow sighting lap because this Silverstone circuit, very fuel thirsty. It's high tyre consumption, as we saw over 10 laps in the sprint yesterday, and it's certainly high fuel consumption. So they'll be in fuel saving mode around the sighting lap. Everybody in the sprint yesterday, of course over the shorter format, did run the soft rear tyre. Over the longer distance today, a lot of riders felt that the pick was going to be the medium. Will anybody be swayed though by the fact that it's pretty cool here today with just, what, 16 degrees at the ambient temperature, and there was still some cloud. As you can see, there's the right hand side of your picture there, sort of under the heavy cloud cover at Silverstone. If that does cover the entirety of this layout, this big 6-kilometre layout, well, it will drop the temperatures, and of course it's all about keeping that temperature in those Michelin tyres. Will anybody take a punt maybe on trying to manage the soft to the checkered flag?
Well, Marco Bezzecchi was potentially one of the contenders for that. He certainly opened the door to that possibility when he spoke to us yesterday. Of course, that Aprilia was so strong in the latter stages. Alex Marquez is getting a bit animated there, ensuring that nobody gets in his way as he's looking to ride through the pit lane. Pit lane is still open for another 2.5 minutes or so. As Alex Marquez comes in, he'll jump across to the bike that he'll now take to the grid and, of course, take his place in the middle of the front row. Of course, he was a little agitated early yesterday morning when he didn't exactly get the cooperation he wanted from Miguel Oliveira in free practice 2. He then crashed here at Stowe Corner moments later when he was a little too keen to get on the throttle as he tried to pass some Chantra, but boy did Alex Marquez put that behind him when we got to the sprint in the afternoon.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, he is clearly the standout favourite to take the spoils here at Silverstone today. As you can see, the riders at a very, very slow pace come to complete their sighting laps. That's as slow as you'll see Marc Marquez ever tackle Club Corner here at the British Grand Prix. As we mentioned, very hard to call the British Grand Prix in recent history with, 10 different winners in our last 10 Grand Prix. Jorge Lorenzo, Marc Marquez himself, Valentino Rossi, Maverick Vinales, Andrea Dovizioso, Alex Rins, Fabio Quartararo, Pecco Bagnaia, Aleix Espargo and Enea Bastianini. Those 10 different winners, like a who's who of modern day MotoGP, isn't it? Are we going to get an 11th different winner in 11? No pressure, Alex, but it looks like it's all on you.
Yes, if you look down the grid, we've got Alex Marquez second between Fabio Quartararo, our 2021 winner. Bagnaia starts third, winner in 2022. Marc Marquez, 2014 winner, starts fourth. Fermin Aldeguer and Jack Miller, of course, yet to win this Grand Prix, nor has Fabio Di Gianantonio, but we've got the likes of Alex Rins, who's won here, of course, back in 2019, and others further down the grid who've also got success over the years. Well, we saw a VR46 rider on the podium yesterday, Fabio Di Gianantonio coming through from 7th to 3rd. Let's get an idea on the team's prospects today from Uccio Salucci with Jack.
Uccio, great ride yesterday from Fabio to get himself onto the podium after fighting past both Fabio and Pecco. Can we expect more of the same today?
Yeah. Fabio is in a good shape. Now we use, we try to decide the front tire or soft or ham tire. This one is a very important decision now with the Fabio technical, so to speak, and in the good shape. We tried for today for fight for the podium. Unfortunately, we start the third road because yesterday we take the yellow flag with Zarco, a crash in front of us in the qualifying. And anyway, we see what's happened. I hope also Franco try to recover this gap because we have also the penalty. But anyway, he have a good rhythm. Maybe possible fight for the first 6th position, also Franco.
Thanks, Uccio. Good luck.
Grazie, thank you.
I was hoping Jack was going to ask Uccio if there's still in some chocolate cake around that garage. Franco Morbidelli, of course, scheduled to make his 200th Grand Prix start. Just having a look at this grid graphic nobody at the moment. Of course, this could change. Has got the Michelin soft compound rear tyre. There's a few splits in terms of fronts. I've seen a few riders that are going to go for the soft front. A couple of Honda riders, I think it was Joan Mir on the latest Spargo, going for the hard front. This, of course, could change. Yeah, everybody on the medium rear, Lewis, but certainly some divides in terms of the front tyre selection.
The soft front tyre has been a popular pick throughout a lot of the weekend due to the lack of temperature and the wind potentially. It's very hard to keep the temperature in that hard and medium tyre. Of course, when you're running the soft front tyre, not only does it generate the temperature quicker, but it holds on to that temperature a lot better as well. So you can understand why a few riders want to go that route. But of course, this circuit does give those tyres, both front and rear, a pounding. So a lot of the field going a step harder from the sprint to the Grand Prix.
We haven't seen that very often this year, have we? Marc Marquez following Pecco Bagnaia. Well, we know he's a four-wheel nut because he was the host of the popular Top Gear programme here in the UK and around the world for so many years, and we know he loves two wheels as well. I'm delighted Jack Appleyard on the grid with Richard Hammond.
Yes, I am indeed. Great to be down here with Richard, who, as you say, Bertie, big fan of four wheels, but you're a big fan of two as well. How much are you enjoying the experience here at MotoGP?
Loving it. It's always been actually quietly, privately, bikes first for me. I've ridden bikes for 39 years. But this is my first ever MotoGP. I know, and I can't believe I've left it this long, so I'm so excited.
Have you managed to catch any of the action earlier on? If you haven't, then have you brought your ear defenders? Because the noise is going to blow you away.
I have been, the number of people who've said, because I've been here at Silverstone many, many times and heard loud things, but everyone says, no, this is next level. It's visceral, I'm going to feel it, and I can't wait. It's fabulous to be here.
Ever fancy swinging your leg over one of these things?
No. I've actually got at home a Ducati 916 SPS, the Foggy Rep limited edition one, which he used to race. And I don't know how these guys do what they do. But it's a different thing to what I do when I ride a bike. Watching them back it in, drifting, forget it. It's just incredible to see. But I'd have bailed out long before.
Well, it's great to see you here. Enjoy the day and enjoy the race.
Certainly shall. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic to hear. Very popular TV personality, Richard the Hamster Hammond here this weekend, soaking up his first ever experience at MotoGP. I'm sure it won't be his last.
No, he's buzzing as we are ahead of this British Grand Prix. So three of our quartet of Yamaha riders there chewing the fat outside their box. Fabio Quartararo, Alex Rins and Jack Miller all having a chat. They all start in the front four rows of the grid after three Yamahas made it through to qualifying two yesterday. Miguel Oliveira there in the back of the Pramac box. Is the conversation about tyres, or is it about something else? Of course, we saw Fabio Quartararo preparing for the sprint yesterday by watching Formula One's qualifying in Monte Carlo.
Even at the end of that 10-lap sprint yesterday, we did see some obvious grading, particularly on the right-hand side of some of those soft compound Michelin front tyres. You do wonder whether that's conditioned the choice of some riders over the double distance to go for the medium front. It's cool, I'll give him that. It is chilly, but I'm not sure it's that Baltic, Pedro. Trying to keep himself protected from the elements. I think Jack Miller told Jack Appleyard, our colleague down in pit lane, that the wind conditions here today are very much Phillip Island-esque. Of course, both of them wide open and exposed to the elements. Overtaking hot spots, turn 3, turn 6, 15 and 16. When you've got a layout that's as long as Silverstone, 5.9 kilometres, 3.666 miles, you would hope that there would be plenty of overtaking hot spots. There are ample around this Silverstone circuit. It looks like there's some late changes in terms of tyres here. This is factory Honda riders, so Luca Marini or possibly Aleix Espargaro and Joan Mir have decided for a late change. There was a lot of discussions, wasn't there, going on between three of those Yamaha riders. A bit of a conference call inside the Pramac garage. I wonder if they also are thinking that there's a late change of heart here. Just, of course, factoring in how cool it is. A real stiff breeze blowing around Silverstone. That's been the dominating factor of the whole day here. The MotoGP riders this morning, when they went out for their 10-minute warm-up session, did encounter mixed conditions. There have been some torrential downpours overnight, and in particular sort of around 8:30 a.m. this morning. Thankfully, that rain has cleared away. We're not expecting any more rain. Sorry to disappoint Johan Zarco fans watching back at home. Yeah, we should get a dry race, but certainly the wind is going to be a decisive factor in this Grand Prix.
What it played into the Moto2 battle that we just saw, we won't spoil the outcome for it, but certainly one feature of that race was that it was very, very difficult to break clear at the front of the field. The slipstream much more powerful in these kind of conditions. Well, the message to Fabio Quartararo is pretty clear. We've seen messages such as breathe on Jorge Martin's bike before. Well, it's clear to Fabio Quartararo, push Fabio, and he certainly pushed yesterday to take that third straight pole position.
And that's his #1 bike, as you can see on that red sticker, FQ1. It said he'll be hoping it is P1 at the end of this 20-lap British Grand Prix. Well, we saw some of the Yamaha stars having a bit of a conflab. Was it about tyre choice? Well, let's find out, because we can hear from Aussie hero Jack Miller on the grid with our Jack.
Yeah, great to be down here with Jack. How are you feeling ahead of this one?
Yeah, it's one of those ones. Sort of a bit of time in the unknown. That wind's certainly picked up today. It's the same for everybody, so we'll try and get stuck into it. Looks for me, I feel more confident with the soft front. I mean, we know the limitations of it, but you take the guesswork out of it with the temperature. You know, ground temperature's nearly there, but then that air temperature's freezing cold and a lot of wind, a lot of crosswind. So play it safe with the soft front. We know the limitations, like I said, and yeah, fingers crossed we can be there at the end of the race.
That sounds like the big question mark across the grid, the front tyre choice. What are the pros and cons of both?
Yeah, like I said, you know, the soft obviously is going to be able to get in the temperature working range pretty easy. But, of course, you have a lot more collapse. I know a lot of the other manufacturers are having a lot of graining issues. Fortunately for us, we didn't have that. We haven't had that all weekend, so you know, that's why I'm more leaning towards that. But obviously with the medium, you got to get it into the working range, and obviously if you're in the back or in a bit of a slipstream, that can help. But this wind is relentless and it's brisk as, so I don't like the idea of that.
Have a good one, mate.
Cheers, eh?
Thanks, Jack, and thanks another Jack. You know that the wind is potentially a key factor, because you could just sense a little bit of anxiety in the voice of Jack Miller, who doesn't normally care one iota what the elements throw at him. As he mentioned there, it was a couple of Ducatis that seemed to be suffering from graining on that soft front tyre, and as Jack so brilliantly pointed out, the soft front will certainly get up to optimal working temperature at a quicker rate than the medium. It will give you better turning with the extra edge grip, but you are going to sacrifice some braking stability, aren't you? It's a tough call, always a tough call here at Silverstone. What's going through Gigi Dall'Igna's mind as he saw Ducati defeated in a Grand Prix for the first time since Austin last year? Johan Zarco denying Ducati a record-breaking 23rd successive victory, as the fans wait with bated breath, as we are, just over 10 minutes away from lights out for the Tissot Grand Prix of the United Kingdom.
Of course, tricky start for this Grand Prix, the run-up to Abbey Corner. We discussed it yesterday before the sprint got underway, the difficulty of whether you engage and disengage the front and rear start devices at the optimum moments, because it's not a particularly hard braking zone into Abbey Corner. The first big braking event on this Silverstone lap is into the third corner, that is a Village Corner, the tight right-hander, and it's usually a bit of a bottleneck into that corner. Well, as you can see, there's been 10 different MotoGP winners here in our last 10 Grand Prix to take place here. Will we see an 11th today? There are 3 potential candidates to that, starting from our front 2 rows.
Well, Ducati haven't been beaten in back-to-back Grand Prix since 2022, when Miguel Oliveira won that wet Buriram Clash for KTM, followed up by Alex Rins' absolute classic victory at Phillip Island. Of course, Rins himself a winner of a classic and epic battle here at Silverstone back in the day. What a race that was in 2019, 5 years ago, when he won it on the last lap, the last corner against Marc Marquez. Still the 4th closest finish in Premier Class history. Well, it's great to see some spring sunshine here at Silverstone. It is pretty cool. These pictures are somewhat deceiving because it's not as warm as it looks, that's for sure. as we get set very shortly to pause for the national anthem, a rendition of God Save the King. Well, who will be the king of the British Grand Prix in 2025? Will it be Marc Marquez? 11 long years since he was victorious in the British Grand Prix, one of the blue ribbon events, one that every rider wants to win, isn't it? A classic race at Silverstone. We're going to take a pause then now as we get set for the national anthem.
God save our gracious King. Long live our noble King. God save the King. Send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the King.
Wow, Emily Yarrow with the rendition of God Save the King. Who will be the king of the British Grand Prix in 2025? Fabio Quartararo looking for a second British Grand Prix victory from pole position. Can he end Yamaha's long victory drought dating back to the Sachsenring in 2022? Can Alex Marquez do the double for the first time in his MotoGP career, starting alongside him in second? And can the factory Ducatis make progress from third and fourth on the grid? Davide Tardozzi speaking out of Jack.
Davide, big race ahead. But Mark yesterday feeling that maybe second was a good result, but we know what Marc Marquez is like, and it's been a tough weekend for Pecco. What are the confidence levels like for him to bounce back?
Yeah, it's a shame that this morning was wet, because yesterday the engineers has a good idea, very, tough changement on the setting, but we couldn't test during the warm-up, so we'll see what it's gonna be. But anyway, we will start with the same setting, or slightly the setting of yesterday, because the other one was too strong to go on race straight. But anyway, I think that today Alex will be the favorite again, and we'll see if our riders can be able to fight for the podium.
Thanks, Davide.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to factory Ducati boss Davide Tardozzi, echoing the sentiments of his riders, Marc and Pecco, who've already picked Alex Marquez as the pre-race favourite. Davide Tardozzi, the boss, not disagreeing with his superstar duo, Fermin Aldeguer. Is he 20 laps away from taking the accolade of youngest ever MotoGP winner away from Marc Marquez? This is his last chance saloon for the 20-year-old, who is 20 years and 50 days today. Marc Marquez's record when he took the youngest rider winning record away from Freddie Spencer, he was 20 years and 63 days. Well, perfect timing, because we're going to talk about the Gresini Racing riders with the boss Michele Massini. Alex Marquez, the big favourite, having taken victory in the sprint yesterday, and Aldeguer firing away from fifth. What are the thoughts of the boss? Michele joins Jack.
Michele, obviously, Alex the big favourite for this one. Just how important will it be for him to be patient in this race?
Yeah, it will be crucial, like yesterday, to manage well the front tire, because yesterday we had the right setup to keep the maximum potential from the front tire until the end of the sprint. Today will be different with the front tire, the management, but I think that we will play our card also today.
We didn't see Fermin's potential yesterday. Can he fight for the podium, do you think?
I hope that he could be fight for the top 5 at least today.
Thanks, Michele.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. Thanks to Gresini boss Michele Massini. They know this is a big chance, isn't it, for the double. Fabio Quartararo limbering up, getting himself ready for this 20-lap Grand Prix of the United Kingdom. A race winner here at Silverstone back in 2021. That day he was Yamaha's first winner here since Valentino Rossi in the monsoon conditions of 2015. Since then though, since his victory 4 years ago, the 26-year-old Frenchman has not finished higher than 8th. I'm sure he'll be looking though, as he said yesterday, top 5, top 6 would be a good result. He saw chatter problems yesterday really slowed him late on in that sprint, particularly in the low grip conditions around Silverstone. So we are, what now, less than 5 minutes away from lights out for our 7th chapter in the 2025 MotoGP World Championship. 19 points is the gap between Marc and Alex Marquez after Alex's brilliant victory, commanding victory in the sprint yesterday. I believe it was the second biggest winning margin in a sprint since the new era kicked off at the start of 2023. 3.5 seconds he took the checkered flag clear of Marc. Fair to say Marc had eased off towards the tail end of that sprint, taking the 9 points and thinking bigger picture of the World Championship. As Quartararo then gets himself in the zone, gets himself ready for what potentially, or what he'll be hoping for, is a first Grand Prix victory since the Saxon Ring in 2022. Just look at the concentration running through his mind, isn't he, Alex Marquez? The start, the perfect first lap, and how this race might unfold. You can just see there the impact of the wind. Fabio Quartararo's umbrella lady really having to cling on for dear life onto that Monster Energy umbrella. It's a pretty tough gig down there today, holding on to those umbrellas. So Quartararo, he's on the soft front tyre, medium rear tyre.
Did that result from the conversation we saw with Jack Miller and Alex Rins in the Yamaha box around about 10 minutes ago?
Well, Fabio feels that in the cool conditions, it's the soft front that's going to give him the best chance of ending Yamaha's long run without a victory. There are the two Marquez brothers on your screens, the top two in the World Championship. Bagnaia fires away from third on the grid, 2022 British Grand Prix winner. But it's Fabio Quartararo trying to be the flying Frenchman here in the British Grand Prix.